The only thing I love more than a happy hour is a championship week happy hour. This one, as always, presented by Dr. Pepper. Yogi Roth, Ashley Adamson, back with you. 3 days from kickoff in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Yes.
And we've got 3 new head coaches in the Pac-12 to talk about. We will get to that. But let's start. The penultimate CFP rankings, Yogs, are out. Officially, it will be number 10 Oregon and number 17 Utah in the Pac-12 Championship game on Friday night. So before we get into the actual game, your thoughts, reactions to the rankings, either as it pertained to Oregon, Utah, or overall?
Well, I think 2 things. Let's start with the Ducks. Things can happen that I don't think are out of the realm of possibility in terms of teams losing on championship weekend. They could all of a sudden vault Oregon into a dialogue of 2-loss debate, right? Whether that's 2-loss Michigan if they lose. I mean, we know the scenarios, and I just think that they still have, of course, the Rose Bowl in front of them. That will be a guarantee if they win. But depending what happens Saturday, like who knows with the season we've had and what the committee has shown to do, what they can do with the changes we've seen even in head coaching changes, right? With Notre Dame and Brian Kelly going out. So I think that's something just for Duck fans to remember. Like there's still a chance there in that regard to be a fun debate if it happened. And then I think for Utah, like I get there's probably frustration of where they are ranked right now, but if you go back and look at history, right? And USC in 2016 is a great example, Ash. They finished number 9 in the country. They went to the Rose Bowl, beat Penn State, and finished 3rd, and launched them into preseason hype for the next season. Utah, to me right now, is going to be the favorite in the Pac-12 South next season, regardless of what they do in their final 2 games of the season. So if they are to win against the Ducks and go to the Rose Bowl and win, don't worry about where you're ranked right now. It doesn't even matter. You'll be a top 5 program by the end of the season. All the buzz will be around Cam Rising and Kyle Whittingham next season.
No doubt about that. And I think to your point, like, don't worry about the chaos that may or may not happen. Also, if you're an Oregon fan, because maybe they'll be back in the playoff conversation depending on what happens on championship weekend. You know, Mario Cristobal is not worried about that. He's worried about solving all the things that led to a 31-point loss to the Utes just 10 days ago. What are you expecting to see in Utah, Oregon 2.0 this season, Yogs?
I think it's going to be the best championship game we've had in the Pac-12 since it became the Pac-12 and it had 2 divisions. And here's why. Like, I don't believe Oregon is 30 plus points worse than Utah, and vice versa. I think these 2 teams are evenly matched. I went back and watched the game again this morning, and with 2 minutes left in the first half, it's 14-0. And Oregon had special teams errors, right? They had a field goal blocked and they missed one. So I think this is going to be a tight game. I think I call this a culture game, and both of these cultures are extremely strong. I'd argue they're as strong as any in this league. What Oregon had to deal with this season with the expectations, the pressures, and the injuries to be in the champ game now, feeling kind of healthy, is an impressive element to their program. For Utah, it's been documented. You've been the one doing it. What they've went through off the field, and then starting 1 and 2 and having to make a change at quarterback, and what they've done, just look at the numbers since Cam Rising became the quarterback, let alone the wins and the style in which they've done it with their offensive front. And then you've got the 2 best defensive players in the league, and one might argue the country, in Devin Lloyd and Kayvon Thibodeau, let alone Mika Tafua and Noah Sewell, if you want to go Batman and Robin on both squads. I mean, this is best on best. And as I look at this game and try to predict where's the matchup, they're everywhere. It's the offensive front versus the D-line I just referenced. It's the general, Verone McKinley, right? Him against Britton Covey and the tight ends of Utah, right? There's so many things. Anthony Brown, can he deal? Can Utah deal with the zone read and RPO game of him? So there's matchups for days. This is going to be an easy broadcast for Fowler and Herb Street because the storylines are right in front of them.
There are so many, and you nail it on the head. And you look at, again, I think when you think about where Utah was after week 3 and what's happened since, it's just, it's an incredible story. It's going to be an incredible story if Oregon is able to three-peat. So either way, a lot to talk about in Vegas. Before we move on to the coaching stuff, this game ultimately comes down to what?
It's easy to say like the offense and defensive lines because both of these teams begin their style of play by running the ball, period. Neither quarterback to me is set up to sit back in the pocket and throw it 30 times and lead a team on a comeback if somebody is down 2 or 3 scores. They're not set up to do that. So, of course, the line of scrimmage is big. But I think both lines of scrimmage are going to come to play. So I think in the second half, track it at home. What quarterback can make 3 legit throws? I'm not talking about throws that are amazing catches. I'm talking about spot throws against tight coverage, climbing the pocket, avoiding a rush, keeping your eyes downfield. They've both proven to do it. Anthony Brown got the throw of the year, turn it on against Washington, rolling to his left to Devin Williams. It's beautiful in sideways rain, right? Then you go back and you watch Cam Rising. Watch him against USC. His timing in the play action game. Go watch him last week and the shovel pass to Britton Covey when he's getting, flushed out of the pocket. Both of these guys have met the moment at times this year, and they've also been inconsistent at times. Which one can deal in the second half, to me, is going to prove their team to be victorious and holding up the roses on our post-game show.
Well, and it was this game last year that we all got introduced to Anthony Brown. He was one of the biggest reasons why Oregon was able to beat USC last year. All right, so the coaching carousel, it's like on turbocharge. Somebody came in and just like turned it up to like 100. There's a lot going on. You mentioned Brian Kelly, obviously going to LSU, but let's focus on the Pac-12 because there's a lot going on here. 3 new hires, and I think you start with the biggest headline, which Lincoln Riley. You talked to him yesterday at the introductory press conference at USC. There had been 2.5 months of speculation of people guessing and throwing out names of who is it going to be, and I don't think anyone predicted this. Like, it sort of felt like it came out of nowhere, and it's just a home run. It's a big deal for the Pac-12.
It's as seismic of a shift as it has been there since the Pac-12 became the Pac-12. Now, let's remember, Pete Carroll was the 5th choice at USC, and he became a college football Hall of Famer, right? This obviously his record speaks for itself. You look at Chris Peterson and Chip Kelly; those were huge gets at the time because of how they were coveted or what they've done to the game, but nothing like this. And then you add in the era we are in college football with NIL and Los Angeles, the era of the Pac-12 with a new commissioner and the media rights and the expectation and excitement around USC. And then a 38-year-old guy who's had dramatic success and has been mentored by somebody in the College Football Hall of Fame. He'll get there in Bob Stoops, in my opinion. So if you look at this, you couldn't have pictured or painted a better image for USC football. If someone said Lincoln Riley, we all would have jumped on the train, but nobody did because nobody thought he would leave, including him. We talked yesterday, as you referenced, Ash, this wasn't even a thought until after their game over the weekend. And you got to credit USC and their administration of going big, doing it like almost like a stealth mission in the middle of the night. And all of a sudden, he hears at 9 o'clock at night after his game, there's interest. By 10 a.m. the next morning, a deal is almost done. By the afternoon, he's on his way to Southern California, booking his flight with his family. So it's huge. And you've already felt it. Last night, the first day on the job, he's already in the home of one of the top players in the country, gets a huge commitment today from one of the top players in the country. And I don't think it's going to stop. And I just think the build that he's going to create, I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I don't think they're in the CFP immediately. But man, the future for SC, and look at the power shift back to the West. And you got Mario doing his thing at Oregon and Kyle's consistency in Utah. You're going to get to UW and their new coach, Chip, ideally 8 wins, and they keep growing at UCLA. Pac-12, we've been preaching it for a long time. For all the mouths in the South, FYI, the Pac-12 is back in a big way, and that was a huge statement.
It was, and hat tip to Mike Bohn and Carol Folt. You could see that, every expression on their face yesterday kind of said it all. But that was, man, what a day, what a 48 hours. You mentioned Washington, so let's go there. Kalen DeBoer introduced earlier today. He's been at Fresno State, obviously, the last couple of years. He was the OC there under Jeff Tedford before that. And honestly, I've never met him, but I have heard nothing but fantastic things about him. And, he said all the right things in the press conference today. What do you make of the hire by Jen Cohen?
I'm excited for it. I mean, look, they had a lot of people that wanted that job. People they've talked to all across the country. You can imagine they were the who's who of the names and all the recent searches. But when it came down to it, this coach, Kalen DeBoer, when you look at what he did, not just at Fresno State, but he's been a head coach before, granted at a smaller school, but everywhere he's been, he's had quick, efficient, and consistent success. And I've had a chance to talk to Jake Haener earlier today, his record-setting quarterback, of course, from Fresno State, who broke the hearts of the Bruins on the Pac-12 networks in September. And he just talked about how he galvanized that program and how they felt as though they had an advantage every time they went on the field. He goes, he is a true old school ball coach. And I think it makes sense when you look at the tree that you referenced he came from. He also went to Indiana under Tom Allen, a guy who's got tremendous reverence around his coaching acumen around the country. So I think he walks in there, and it may not be the sexiest name in the country when you look at what's happened in LA with Lincoln Riley, but I think for that place and that fit and what the blueprint is to have success at UW, which is be physical, be intentional, be consistent. And again, to this generation of athletes, this guy's thrived everywhere he's been. If you look at the recent years as college football and this generation has changed. So I think he's going to do well there. And this roster is primed to do well. They've got talent at receiver. They've got, we think, talent at quarterback. Their offensive front should be better than what we saw a year ago. The defense has enough players to be in every game. They were in a lot of ball games this year. So I don't think this is going to take a long time for them to be competing again for Pac-12 championships.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned he's won everywhere he's gone. Sioux Falls in South Dakota, the NAIA National Coach of the Year, I think 3 times, 67-3 over 5 years. He kept mentioning the resources at UW, and you got to imagine walking into a place like that and seeing, you know, all the shiny toys and all the different things and knowing what Seattle is. It's going to be cool to see what he does there. All right. And then it feels like a year ago, but Jake Dickert, after a huge Apple Cup win, goes from acting head coach to full-time head coach in Pullman. We've gotten to know him, Yogs, over the past couple of years, and we've talked about the job that he's done this season and steadying the ship. I think, to me, you step back and he made it a pretty straightforward choice for Pat Chun.
Yeah, I mean, look, he got to interview on the job. We talked to him. You know, we broadcast a bunch of their games throughout the latter part of the season, and that thing could have fallen apart, right? But he kept it together. You add in the offensive staff, they kept it together. They brought in coaches who were retired, and to be able to make that sing from the top down is not easy, especially when there were loyalties that went to other coaches that were no longer there. And he accepted that, embraced it, and then they kept moving through that. And I look at what Pat Chun did, and after they win in the Apple Cup, it was just a matter of time, right? You're kind of waiting just for the alert to pop up on your phone. This is Jake Dickert's going to be the head coach here. And here's my take on it. We've been around this fan base a lot, and we've done a lot of their events, and there's something that they call Cougar Pride. And to me, that's about having a chip on your shoulder. That's having an inner belief that is so strong that regardless of how many sky rises are in other cities or how many, you know, TV shows are in other communities, you have pride in what you do and what you build. And I think for a small market in this league, this coach, Jake Dickert, is the perfect fit because he mirrors the Cougar Pride. He's got a massive chip on his shoulder, but he's got a huge vision for the program. And I went back and forth with him a couple days ago, and he said, I'm going to go do this for every small coach in the country that's at a smaller school that just wants a chance. So he understands the opportunity. He's going to do it his way. I imagine, anticipate there'll be changes. It's not going to be like what we saw the last year and a half or so under the previous head coach, but that's the fun part. And I can only imagine if you're that young, and look at the 3 coaches we just referenced, they're all young in terms of their coaching careers. They're going to put their stamp on 3 programs that have a pedigree, that have a reputation, and I can't be more excited to cover it and just be around these guys as they do their thing.
Yeah, to that point, we've got 2 38-year-old coaches now in the Pac-12, so we're officially the old guys. Like, I don't know.
Don't remind us.
Yeah. Okay, Friday, 10-2 Oregon, 9-3 Utah, 5 p.m. kick Pacific time at Allegiant Stadium. Obviously, be sure to tune in 4 o'clock Pacific to the Pac-12 Network. Pre-game crew will be there: Yogi, me, Nigel Burton, Nick Aliotti, and a couple of big-time guests, I think, stopping by. I don't want to like give anything away, but one of them rhymes with Barkus Mariota. Maybe we'll see him. I don't know. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait. So, Yogs, great job as always. Always great spending happy hour with you, and I'll see you in Vegas, my man.
Yes, I can't wait to see who you picked. You double down on Utah. You won last time. You were right. You are the true
Yeah, that feels
undefeated
so
analyst.
good. That feels so good. You just say it one more time.
You are the analyst, undefeated.